The last time we had a Monday Night Football doubleheader last week, everything went to shit immediately. Uh-oh, am I going to get demonetized? But today we got another Monday Night Football doubleheader. 2 games coming up: Eagles-Bucs, Rams-Bengals. We got to dig in deep here. We got to build lineups 3 different ways. We're going to hand build one on DraftKings, talk about the best plays. We're going to run the Fantasy Cruncher Optimizer. They're going to simulate some lineups to see who the best plays are for tonight's doubleheader on Monday Night Football. So let's get it going here. Of course, as always, shouts to the chat. Squirt Squad assembling. Charlie, line of scrimmage here in the chat. Keep the streams rolling. Copper Prices, keeping all the wins rolling on Underdog. Shout out to him getting another ticket to Miami, I believe I saw. Lots of big wins. Shout out to our guy, Mathology, who took down one of the tournaments for $5K yesterday. You guys are doing great out there. I am hanging on by a thread, but we'll talk more about that as we go. Let's build the lineup here, and let's talk about the one thing here. Of course, on the thumbnail, I dig into the stats first. I then look at the thumbnail and go, who should I put on here? Who do I really want to put the venerable Spags brand behind, the venereal Spags brand behind, I guess some could say. And I do think today it is going to be Devontae Smith. Now, whether you play him with A.J. Brown, whether you play him by himself, I do think Devontae Smith is in a very good spot overall going against the Bucs D that on the year has been terrible downfield, giving up a 2.1 EPA, which is an incredibly bad number to the point that it is going to positively regress. They're not going to be this bad all year, but the Eagles know how to attack downfield. That is what they do as well as, if not better than any team out there. On the year, Tampa Bay getting up a 6.1% deep pass rate. Of course, deep passes, the splash plays, defined as a 20-plus air yards play by my metrics. So to me, the way you want to beat the Bucs is going to be to press it downfield. The Eagles have not been great at that so far this year. Jalen Hurts on the year, negative EPA overall on deep throws. He is also not performing too well, though better than average, a 0.3 EPA on his deep throws, 5 of them per game. But I do think that with the way this has been going, Devontae Smith running mostly out wide, A.J. Brown running a little bit more out of the slot, I think that bodes well for Devontae having the outlier day. So I'm going to go with him as our first play. There is a little bit of a squeaky wheel narrative going with A.J. Brown as well. A.J. Brown, I think, certainly can be a player we go to here. If we're just expecting Philadelphia to get the ball downfield aggressively, attack downfield, I think there's certainly something here that we can play into. So I actually am going to go A.J. Brown for now. I do think I'd prefer Devontae. I know a lot of people out there, of course, saw the screaming match on the sidelines between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts last week. Squeaky wheel narrative. People like to flock to ownership plays like that just because of this one thing they saw in the game. Obviously, what's tough then when the narrative stuff aligns with the data. Still think A.J. Brown's a good play, but to me, just that sort of logic there, the fact people might go, oh, A.J. Brown's going to get fed tonight, kind of makes me want to play Devontae Smith more. But these guys basically, I think, 1-to-1 plays in this spot. Both should have equal opportunity to go off. For right now, let's put them in a double stack and let's see what we can build around that. So Tampa Bay, not a high total for them, 19.8 implied points going against an Eagles D that on the year has not been great, but certainly serviceable. Normally, again, on a main slate, wouldn't force a bring back, but we only have so many players to go around here. So let's put in Rachaad White. I think it's an okay matchup for him going against Philly, whose historical weakness has been in the run game. This year, they have not been too bad, though. Giving up a negative 0.24 EPA per rush is the Philadelphia defense. So that was something where last year, I believe they were giving up a 0.07 EPA per rush. They were actually giving up positive metrics there. This year, they're not doing that. Of course, a changeover at defensive coordinator for them. But I think Rachaad White, the workload being there, I'm not in love with him by any stretch. He's projected to be incredibly chalky today. 46.6% projected ownership on Stochastic, 46% on ETR as well. So it feels like Rachaad White certainly coming in with a good amount of steam. But in this spot for me, I do think let's start with Rachaad White and we'll figure out where else we can go. Eagles wise, don't think I want to stack on any more Eagles yet. I have been finding myself on the main slates having a few too many QB +3 stacks as a result of the simulations. I don't love them quite as much. I'm going to start to dial back the QBs +3. That said, on a doubleheader, a QB +3 makes a little bit more sense because you're just trying to cut that parlay as much as possible. So definitely, a thing here with Hurts. Maybe you mix in a DeAndre Swift. I know Swift will certainly be popular today, projected for about 32% ownership on Stochastic, 38% on ETR. But for me, moving away from Swift, hoping that we're not chasing that big point total from last week, I think is the move, at least to start the lineup so far. Rams-Bengals does feel like another Puka Nacua spot. He is supposedly questionable due to oblique, but Sean McVay said he expects him to play, so we have to assume that Puka will be going today. He's a top 5 projected player on the slate. He is also still fairly reasonably priced. Kyren Williams, perhaps a little bit better priced. And on the year, the Bengals are giving up a 0.2 EPA per target to running backs. Kyren Williams targeted very heavily out of the backfield, basically getting Christian McCaffrey style usage, as we talked about in last week's Spags rankings. So I actually am going to go with Kyren Williams as well in this build. And I guess, do I go Kyren and Puka? We're running out of money, so we're going to have to get some value here. We out here had to wait 5 minutes. What? You don't have to wait 5 minutes. You can hop in whenever you please. I started on time. But let's talk about some value plays then. And I hate doing this cheat process, but let's go over to Stochastic and see who they have as the top values overall. Because it's a hand build. I try to build it off the top of my head, but I do think looking at these things kind of important. So you can see, despite Puka's price tag going up here, still projected at the highest or second highest value of all the skill position guys. So I do think we got to cram in Puka here in our single entry huddle. So let's do that. All right, Puka is in two, and now we are deathly low on money. So let's see what we can do at defense. Do we get contrarian by perhaps by playing the Bucs D? Maybe Jalen Hurts gives one away. That wouldn't be the craziest. The Bengals probably the most fertile team to target, given how poorly they've played to start the year. Let's get weird. Let's do Bucs D. Let's say that somehow Jalen Hurts turns it over once. That's a play that he wants back. Home crowd for Tampa Bay. The pirate ship, cannons firing off left and right. I think the Bucs D at this price tag gives us some salary savings. We can hopefully find a way to make this work. Irv Smith not going to go for Cincinnati. It looks like he is doubtful. I think he was supposedly closer to being out, so I don't expect him to go today. Drew Sample is a value play, $2,500 minimum, going against a Rams team on the year, getting up a 0.61 EPA to tight end. So Drew Sample not going to get a lot of volume, I would expect. Irv on the year just getting 4 targets per game. But Drew Sample's been in the system for a little bit. He did have some amount of a pedigree coming in. Let's go Drew Sample. Let's do that. 2,500. That'll save us some money so we get an okay guy in the flex. Got $4,200 left. Boston Scott marked out already. Travion Williams, Rashad Penny, Sean Tucker. Probably don't want to play Sean Tucker and Rashad White. I know people maybe want to chase the two running backs on the same team after Raheem Mostert and Devin A-Chain go combined for 90 points yesterday, 95 points. So don't think that's normally a thing you're going to go to if a team's not scoring 70 in a game. So I'm not going to go to Sean Tucker here. I'd rather have a receiver, but it feels like there are not a lot of cheap receivers. Van Jefferson? Nah, that'd be a lot of Rams. Tyler Boyd, can he get going? Seems like you would expect more of Chase Higgins going there. Tyler Boyd on the year, down to just 5.5 targets as Chase and Higgins are at 9 and 10 targets per game, respectively. So that's pretty tough. I think we got to go in this spot. I think we go Travion Williams. Is he getting enough snaps to really justify this? 26 snaps, 14 routes. Maybe gets a red zone target. He is getting 1 red zone intended touch per game. Not nearly as much as Mixon, but he's clearly going to be leverage against Mixon. Let's go Travion Williams. I don't know that I feel great about this one, but let's go with it. Team that I'm going to go with my hand-built lineup here in the single entry huddle. Jalen Hurts, Rashad White, Kyren Williams, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Drew Sample, and Travion Williams. So we are getting the garbage Bengals in this one, but I do think that makes some amount of sense. Obviously, people are going to flock to Chase, going to flock to Higgins, and that makes sense. These guys are getting a lot of work, but we are trying to take down a single entry, trying to take it down on a double header slate. So let's go with that as our build. Now let's go into the projections, and we'll sort it again. You can see the top value plays once more. Puka and Kyren Williams probably going to come up a lot in an optimizer. Let me copy the projections so we can put them into Fantasy Cruncher in a moment here. Other value plays, any cheap values that stand out? Bucs D does look like a top defensive value overall, so I guess I was in the right there to go with them as my pick. K. Dotton looking like an okay value. Really no 3K guys jumping out, so definitely not looking the best. Drew Sample, what was Drew Sample at? All right, Drew Sample of 5.4 projection, 2.1 value. He's not too sneaky, I guess, but a little sneaky because he's not going to jump out as a projection play. So that looks okay. So I feel okay about that hand build we made. So let's keep it going. Ownership projections on Stochastic, of course. I blend ETRs and Stochastics together, but Stochastic, I think, does a good job representing what most of the field's going to be looking at. So let's look at it. Joe Mixon, chalk player of the day, projected at 59% ownership. Kyren Williams, 53% ownership. This just made me laugh. Drew Sample is also a medical procedure. That's true. Anytime you can play a medical procedure on your team, you got to go for it. Puka chalk, Rashad White chalk, Jamar Chase chalk. So I think that's what we did correctly was we got away from Chase and Higgins, both of whom represent about 45 and 41% ownership in these stochastic projections. And then we're getting leverage against them theoretically by going with Drew Sample and with Travion Williams. I think in hindsight, Tyler Boyd is a little bit better leverage, but again, 2-game slate. You got to get weird if you're going to try to take it down. So I think that all works. Guys under 10% who might be worthwhile flyers. Van Jefferson obviously playing terribly, but still running a good amount of routes out there. Van Jefferson playing actually 70.5 snaps per game, 41.5 routes, and he is not going to be owned. Stochastic has Van Jefferson at 12% ownership. ETR has him at 14% ownership. So not a lot of Van Jefferson out there. So that might be one way. If you're stacking up the Rams, I think that you can then go Stafford, Puka, Kyron, Van Jefferson, and that's the way you get the ownership product down of that entire build. But here you go. You can play any of these guys, and they will be less owned. Trey Palmer, Devin Hopkins, Travion Williams. Travion Williams, lowest owned guy in the slate, allegedly. So we got that going for us. As far as we know, Burrow is playing. Yeah, that is a big question mark here. I think he's playing. There's some weird reports out there. There's too many Twitter handles out there with NFL in their name that people then retweet. And it's like, oh, he might play tonight. I forget what the one is. It's like ML football, I think is what it was. And it was like, oh, he might play tonight. And if he doesn't play, he's going to go on IR. It's like, what? Those are two completely different opposite ends of the spectrum. So be careful what you're following out there news-wise. But I do think Burrow trending towards playing. He was practicing with the calf on his sleeve. So hopefully he'll be okay. We got our projections. Let's dump them into Stochastic. Let's go to our Monday only slate for tonight. And let's get them in. Of course, this, if you haven't used an optimizer before, Fantasy Cruncher, probably the industry standard one that all the pros use before the great simulation wars that have changed everybody's process. We're also going to talk a little bit more about sims coming up in a moment. I will say from my perspective, there are a few things that have changed around a little bit in terms of how I'm approaching the sims, especially for short slates, where last week what I observed was that no sims were coming up with Bryce Young. So I forced my way to Bryce Young. I didn't get the right combo. The guy who won $1 million, Squirrel Patrol over at a Roto Grinder, seems like a lovely guy. So kudos to him. He put in a Bryce Young stack. I think also got different at running back. So keep that in mind. The guys that we're seeing here, these are the projection best plays for a 2-game slate. I do think you want to hold your nose a little bit more and try to be willing to get to different stacks. So that today might be getting to Matthew Stafford more. That might mean getting to Baker Mayfield more. Whatever it is, that's going to be the way that I play the slate. So just keep that in mind. There's a problem with Burrow, even if he plays, which seems dubious. The medical community is worried about high re-injury risk, and they're only playing versus Aaron Donald. Seems bad. Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to have to move around a lot if Aaron Donald is crashing upside, in the middle. So I think that's something that could definitely make him have to move around more. I still would try to play the positive side of the injury, I guess. But it just depends on what's coming up. Like if Joe Burrow's a chalk, then yeah, I think following what Tyler's saying here and playing that maybe he gets hurt, maybe he can't go the full game. I mean, they are clearly bringing in backups, or at least they've been talking about signing new guys to QB. Jake Browning is their backup. It's not the most solid situation. So if you want to just, maybe get away from Burrow, I can see that logic, but it does seem like Burrow is coming up a good amount here. So maybe that's how you play it. Baker coming up the most. Joe Burrow coming up second most with just the optimized projections here. Matthew Stafford coming in third. Jalen Hurts coming in last. So I do feel even better about having Jalen Hurts at QB. You have the most elite QB on the slate. He's coming in the least owned because of the price tags. You're going to have to force in some scrubs, absolutely. But it does feel like the build right now is not pushing you towards Jalen Hurts, and that could be an absolute smash spot. So good to know. Other configurations here with this 25 lineups that we made. So you're seeing a lot of 5-player stacks for Bucs. So the Bucs are probably going to be overstacked in the slate, as are the Bengals. Again, if we're going to follow what Tyler is saying, follow what the medical guys on Twitter are saying. Perhaps Cincinnati, then you don't play the 5-player stack. You play just a couple of the pieces there without Joe Burrow. That could be one way to get different. But it does feel like this slate, not stacking up a lot of Rams, not stacking up a lot of Eagles, 2 teams that clearly have been very potent. And the Rams, as we've talked about, coming into the year, I did not have a lot of faith in the Rams, did not have a lot of faith in Matthew Stafford with his history of spinal stuff coming up. But him, I think, in this situation where he just had a really nice game against the Niners, Bengals D is tough. They're not the Niners D. So I do think that Stafford's in play and the Eagles are in play. Wouldn't play Burrow at all tonight, which probably means it's a good play. I mean, look, this is tough, man. You guys, 2 sharp guys here in Tyler and Charlie. Of course, Charlie finished top 3 in BBM last year. I always give him his flowers for that one as one of the most noteworthy people in our chat for sure. I would say that, the projections are saying Burrow. If people are going to be afraid to play Burrow, I think that's something that's hard to juggle for me, where I tend to think that the projections push people towards a certain amount of ownership. But if there are sharp guys who are afraid to play Burrow or think it's not wise to play Burrow, I think you have to have some Burrow representation just because of that. But the stacks here definitely saying a lot of Burrow. I mean, we can scroll through, seeing a lot of Jamar Chase in the flex. Pretty much a Bengal in the flex for every single one of these lineups. So that's tough. This one has Hurts unstacked as a top 25 projected lineup overall. If you're going to play a cash game tonight, we'll look at a sim cash lineup. This would be a good cash lineup to go with. Of course, highest projected lineup, always what you should be doing for cash games. Baker Mayfield, Joe Mixon, Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Cade Otton, Jamar Chase, Bucks D. That is the cash game lineup. Let's go to the sims. Let's see what the sims have to say about it. So again, I am going to drop. So this is, I think, their default now. So let's just run it with the default. So 45% QB plus 1, 25% QB plus 2, 5% QB plus 3, and 25% with the bring back. Obviously, we'll probably get more of those because it's a double header, but let's see what the sims have to say. Let's generate these lineups. Olamide Zaccheaus. Quez Watkins is out tonight, right? So I guess Zaccheaus theoretically gets a slight boost there, but definitely not the most exciting play to go to. Spags made my drafter screen name in honor of Pete, and I'm somehow in first right now. Hey, shout out Rod Bender. That's pretty good. What's the username, Rod? That's what we need to know. I'm not going to tinker with the ownership too much. Let's just simulate them and get into that part. 30%. 30% to first. I think it's closer to 33. But let's run the simulation off this. Got a bounce for meeting. Hope you had a great weekend, Spag Daddy, all up from the deep south. Shout out Tyler. I got to be real with you guys. I did not have a great weekend because my grandmother passed. So unfortunately, that does have some ramifications here. I don't like to talk about, I talk about real life stuff, but like death is hard for me. I'm really bad with that kind of stuff. Not going to have a showdown video on Thursday because of that. We'll be heading to New York quickly to do the wakes, and then I'll be back on Friday. So just so you guys are aware, and if I do seem a little bit less dispirited or more dispirited than usual, that's probably part of why. But shout out to my grandma, lovely woman, 97 years old, so nothing unexpected there. But thank you guys, appreciate that. Hey, thank you. Yeah, look, it's tough, man. Like I believe for the most part, like, my job, what I do here on Splash Play, I get up to bat every day. I'm going to do this content. This is what brings me joy, what gives me purpose every day. That said, it is hard for me to balance this stuff. And it's also like when somebody's 97, my grandma lived a good life. She was still playing piano at her old folks home until basically the end there. And then they found out that she had, this is like dark humor. So apologies to anybody who's new to the channel. I'm like, why is this guy laughing about this? My grandma had lung cancer, apparently, had congenital heart failure, had 2 other things that were really bad going on that I forget now offhand. So, sometimes things have to go. And now she gets to be with my grandfather if we believe in those things. So there we go. Shout out Grandma Nastos, not Spags. All right, let's look at the top lineups here. Again, back to business. Hard for me not to talk about this stuff. I'm a human being here. You guys know I try to be more human than most of our fellow content creators out there every single day. All right, so top ones here, top line. If you wanted to steal this, again, the projections change around throughout the course of the day, so keep that in mind. Baker Mayfield, Joe Mixon, Rashad White, Chris Godwin, Puka Nacua, T. Higgins, Cade Otton, Jamar Chase, Bucks D. That is going to be the top overall simulated one, top simulated ROI. If you missed what we've talked about here before, what Stochastic does, they create 10,000 simulations, and they run those 10,000 simulations against each other 40,000 times to find out which lineups have the highest ROIs. That's what you're seeing here. Cash game lineup you would want to play from the Sims would be this one here. It's 39% cash rate with Jalen Hurts, Joe Mixon, Rashad White, Puka Nacua, T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, Cade Otton, Kyron Williams, and the Rams D. Exposure-wise, so this is where I think the important one is, and this is going to be the key change in process from what we've done so far. I keep looking at who's got the lowest exposure relative to what I'm grabbing out of these 150 lineups, and then how do I get some of that guy? So it does seem like we're getting not any Matthew Stafford. We are getting a lot more Jalen Hurts than we did just on the pure projection basis. But let's go to see some Matthew Stafford lineups, because I think right away, those will be ones that I would want to play immediately just because the guy's not coming up in Sims. And now that's what the game is that if the Sims are telling you X, Y, and Z players look good, then you want to go to player A because of the fact that the Sims aren't putting people there, but he still might have some positive ROI lineups. All right, Stafford. Here's a good Stafford lineup. Stafford with Mixon, Kyron Williams, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, T. Higgins, Dallas Goedert, Atwell, Bucks. Let's get my guy Devontae in one of these. Let's add another filter. So if you want to get multiple players in the same lineups here and see which ones are the highest ROI, this is how you do that. We got, here's one with Devontae, Stafford, Mixon, Kyron Williams, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Puka Nacua, Drew Sample. Hey, Drew Sample. And then Tutu Atwell, Eagles. So there we go. So that's how I would try to build this today. Of course, a lot of good lineups out there that you can make still. Again, despite it being a 2-game slate, there are ways to get contrarian. This is one of the ways that I'm going to try to get contrarian tonight, is by taking a player that's going to come up less than the Sims, try to make it work. But I think these Stafford lineups, again, they're going to change throughout the day. So don't steal them if you want, or don't steal them necessarily. But if you do want to steal them, these would be lineups that I would try to steal. All right. Let's cap it there, guys. I think that's enough for today. I don't think you guys are probably gonna have any questions, but shout out to all the chat. I appreciate you guys, being so kind in chat. Really, I know it's like I'm not vulnerable here a lot, and if I am, it's mostly for the sake of a bit. But yeah, it's shout out to my grandma Helen. I'm very nice lady. My grandfather and her, very important people in my life. So take the time today. That'll be the way that I sign off here. It's going to be, call your grandparents if they're still around. This is my last grandparent to go, so I've got none left. But you got to meet my son, Luca. We got to see the grandmother thing. You got to meet my uncle's recent child, my uncle, of course, the 60-year-old man playing for Rick Springfield, who's married to a mid-20s woman. We're getting real here, talking about all this stuff. He just had a child with that woman. So she got to meet both of her grandbabies / great-grandbabies. So no skin off my back on that front. But again, just appreciate the people you have in your life. Take advantage of them, or take advantage of having them in your life when you have them. And that's the one thing I would say, because I am sometimes not the best at that. But there we go. It's all love. And thank you guys for being so kind to chat today. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. Come back tomorrow. Best ball video will be coming up tomorrow. Wednesday, Spags rankings. And then again, no show Thursday. So I'll be off dealing with that stuff. But appreciate you guys for hanging out with me as always. Of course, make sure to subscribe down below. Hit the like button. Leave a comment after the fact. I always answer every question. And I really do appreciate you guys for hanging out with me today and dealing with me being probably a little bit off more than usual. But see you guys. Enjoy your days. Good luck. And go take something down. If I don't win, hope you do. Bye.